Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Secret Astrology. This is Makayla, and today we're going to talk about what the Ascendant means in evolutionary astrology. This is going to be the beginning of a new series that I want to put out so we can better understand what our rising sign is here for us to do. It's here for us to embody. So if you're new to my channel, please stick around to the end. If you are returning, don't forget to hit the like button, and thank you for being here. Thank you for returning. So I'm not going to do any of the zodiac signs. I'm just going to talk specifically about what it means to have the ascendant and what is the ascendant through the evolutionary astrology lens. If you want to comment your rising sign down below, I will go ahead and choose yours first to make a second video. That way I can start going through the archetypes, through all the 12 archetypes on the ascendant. Okay, so this is coming from the teachings of Jeffrey Wolfgreen and Simon Vorster. Simon Vorster has been my direct teacher for a few years now, and I'm also going through the Jeffrey Wolfgreen school, and Simon's just a descendant from his school. Okay, so these are coming from his teachings and also my personal experience and my personal journey of embodying the ascendant and coming to know it from that emotional evolutionary lens. Okay, so in EA, right, in evolutionary astrology, we use the Trinity system. So that means that each house has an affiliation with a zodiac sign and also a planet, okay? And that will make a trinity for each house. It's the easiest way I can explain it, okay? So I'll pull up the natural zodiac right here, right? And here we have the natural zodiac. It begins with Aries and the first house, and it goes all the way through, right? So whenever we're thinking about the first house, your ascendant, no matter what sign you have, you could be Gemini rising, you could be Libra rising, you could be Aries rising, Pisces rising, no matter what it is, you're going to consider the undertone and the backdrop to understand what the ascendant is: Aries, Mars, and the first house. Okay, so the first house represents our beginning of life, right? It is also the part of the sky where the sun was rising when we were born, but it also is significant of our first breath, right? Us coming from this womb, this mystical space, the womb of the universe, obviously the womb of our mother, us coming through the birth canal, us actually coming into our physical body, having our first experiences of being here on Earth school. That is the first house. It's your first initiation into life. That means it is an instinctual nature within you. Okay, your rising sign is going to be a psychologically instinctual drive that you're slowly becoming aware of over time. Okay, one second, my dog's in the box. Sorry about that. So you're doing your rising sign all the time without forethought, right? You don't even realize you're doing it. It just happens. It's just how you're becoming, okay? This is why people get really complicated with understanding what is my sun and then my rising sign now, and then we'll get into the moon eventually too, right? But it's so much different because it's how you're relating to other people in the world. It's how you're relating to your one-to-one relationships, right, as signified by the 7th house opposition, how you're relating to your personal emotional needs and your family, your home, your roots, and your safety and security, okay? That 4th house dynamic. And it's also relating to the outside world, right, and the conditioning that we come into this life, signified by the 10th house, and our ability to build emotional security, right, so that we can develop and come into our rising sign more. The first house is also going to associate with your natural desires to evolve, okay? The desire nature of also the Pluto in your chart, but how you're going to initiate those desires will be described by your Mars placement. So wherever your Mars is in your chart, that's going to give you an extra storyline on how it is activating your rising sign, coming in, initiating new directions, initiating new evolutionary states of consciousness, right? It's just impulsive. It's impulsive drives within your soul. You know, think of the type of things like, I don't know why I did this, but I just knew I had to do it, right? That's the impulsive, instinctual nature of your first house, that ascendant sign, and your Mars placement in your chart, okay? These desires are emanating deep from your soul, and the Mars and the sign that Mars is in your first house and the sign that's on the first house, it's what's helping you enact those desires. It's what's helping you evolve from that Pluto placement, okay? And each rising sign will have an Aries undertone. So that means, okay, so like some rising signs will be more cool-headed, they'll be more logical, they won't be as fiery or set off as like a fire rising sign would be, or even an air sign, right? Because fire really amplifies air. But it's good to understand that there's an Aries undertone beneath your rising that's like, I'm going to enact and I'm going to initiate new things in the way that my zodiac sign on the first house cusp does that, right? So that's why it's really important we get to understand the archetypes, but we also get to understand what is the function of the house we're looking at, right? And then in this case, we're looking at the first house. We're looking at your first initiation, where you've experienced a separation from creation, if you will, and it begins a journey of going back and returning to source, right? This is why the planets move in a circle around the zodiac wheel, right? It's always moving around because we're constantly in this state of moving away from source and then trying to move our way back to source. Pisces, 12th house, right? So even life itself, right? We're born and then we have this whole life journey and we go back to where we came from when it's the end of our life, okay? And Mars is helping you initiate those desires. Mars is setting off that function, right? Mars is giving you that drive. Mars is always going to have a relationship to Pluto in the chart, okay? This is also going to tell you a lot about your sexual instincts, right? Your sexual desires, because Mars Aries can represent that type of energy, right? It's the lover, but it's also the fighter type of energy. Aries, right? Mars also aggression, but fighting for what I want, for what I believe, for what I desire, for what I want to grab a hold of, for what I'm sexually aroused and attracted to, right? These dynamics are an undertone of each one of your significant rising signs, okay? This also, the first house, Aries and Mars, also has an undertone of initiation and new discovery and new beings, okay? And ultimately, it wants the freedom to do it, and it needs the freedom to do that, right? So behind every rising sign, there is a necessary need for some sort of freedom so that the soul has the room and the space and the experiences that help it evolve, okay? These are primal instincts that are rooted within all of us, right? Everybody has an ascendant, everybody has a Mars placement, everyone has Aries somewhere in their natal chart, right? This is a primal instinctual nature within your psyche, right? And you'll feel it. You can feel it emotionally too. You can feel compelled towards something. You can feel the excitement, right? That's when those dynamics are getting activated, okay? When we became humans, like many moons ago, like lots and lots of moons ago, right? We were cavemen, cavewomen, or whatever we were before that, right? We had primal brains. We only had the primal brain. So our natural instinct, our natural ability as wired as a human being was primal, right? Breathing, water, drinking water, getting food, and having sex, right? Those are the primal needs. And then as we have evolved, as we've gotten smarter as a human species, we've created a brain outside of our primal brain, right? We have a super brain now, right? And in one way, right, Jeffrey has taught, we are conditioned by society, like our outside brain gets conditioned by just culture and growing up in our homes and everything else. And that also plays a part into our chart and evolutionary journey and all of our ups and downs, right? But we don't lose that primal instinct within us. We don't lose that natural instinct to survive, to have a drive, to go after something, right? To mate, right? To satisfy our sexual needs, right? There are people who have evolved like super high where they are able to control their primal needs, right? But for the majority, and they can be absent. They don't really, they fast a lot. I'm just thinking of like monks and stuff, right? Who choose that way. And that's like becoming a higher state of consciousness. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, and that's like what you need to aim towards. It just means that there's a higher state of consciousness evolved there where the primal needs don't necessarily need to be acted upon impulsively, right? They're there. It doesn't mean that they don't exist, but they've tempered them, right? And so we're becoming instinctually aware over time of our instinctual primal needs, like instinct and automatic responses to life, to things, to people, to circumstances, to threats, to excitement, to anything, right? That's your rising sign. You're primarily wired in that way, on that sign and that cusp. It's going to describe the way that you go after things like that, the way that you react to things, right? In that nature. It's going to describe that. So that's why you can resonate with your rising sign, but it's like, wow, like it's a perception as well. It's how people will perceive you. And for us to connect to our own rising sign, it's like, what? Like, this is actually how people are perceiving me? Because it's almost like it's so instinctual, you don't think about it, right? Your sun sign you're aware of, right? I'm an Aries, I'm hot tempered, I like to argue sometimes. I'm very much aware of that. I'm a Libra rising. I'm not aware as people think that I am so sweet and harmonious when I come across, because it's instinctual, right? That's what I instinctually do, because I like to connect with people. But like when I tap into my purpose and my being, I'm like, no, I'm here to create wars for the good, right? I'm here to take charge. I'm here to create change, right? So it's funny because you get that seventh house reflection back. That's how people are perceiving you, right? It's the sign on the seventh house, right, is going to be that reflection back as well. You're going to call that in. You're going to call those dynamics in to learn more, to evolve more through your sign on the ascendant, right? So another thing to understand is that when we don't do our primal instincts, when we're not allowing ourselves to evolve through our rising sign, and when we are suppressing our Mars becomes distorted, right? Jeffrey taught whatever is suppressed or oppressed becomes distorted, right? So that's when sexual urges can manifest in negative ways, right? Not for like sacred union or not for deep connection, right? Or that's where anger can evolve, right? Because the Mars doesn't have a place to free itself. It doesn't have a direction to go in. It doesn't have somewhere to allow its freedom to conquer something, right? You can't embody these primal instincts that are within you, right? And so there's a big suppression issue among people. You can just walk around and look at a bunch of people who are unhappy or angry, and it's okay, right? We're all there at one point or another, because we all have to go through this journey of understanding that squared in the 10th house, right? And our security needs being challenged or not met, right? But it's because there's a suppression going on with the primal nature, the primal instinct that is coming out of your rising sign, essentially. I'm just going to look at my notes here and see what else I wanted to say, because I want to keep it pretty simple, and then we'll tune into the different zodiac signs through the ascendants. There's another dynamic where it's important because there's the undertone of Aries. So whatever's on your rising, whatever's on your ascendant, that sign, and then wherever your Mars is and wherever Aries is in your chart, it's important to understand that this area needs to have space and it needs to take up space, right? It's this I am here, I matter, your vital energy, it needs to take up space. All right. This is becoming a part of your personality. This is becoming a part of who you're becoming on a whole, as a whole, is returning to source itself, returning to a sense of wholeness. Okay. And there needs to be this freedom for the exploration, for the pioneering journey. And there also is a level of courage that can be associated with this that either needs to be developed, or if it does exist already, then it needs to be let loose a little bit more, right? A little bit more free. And there can be a natural anxiety with this as well, because subconsciously or unconsciously, we feel that separation from what we once were as a whole. And now we realize we're independent, right? And that's one of the other dynamics, the undertones of the first house, is it's going to represent a sense of independence that's needed for that sign, right? For your placement there. So, I encourage people to sit and meditate and ask yourself, like, where do I not allow myself to take up space, and where do I take up space, right? Where are the pros and cons here? Like, what does it feel when I want to initiate something new? And how do I go about initiating those new tasks, those new things, those new discoveries, new relationships, new jobs, whatever it be, right? And what do I feel like my primal natural needs are, my natural instincts are, right? Start asking yourself those questions to connect more to the first house, to the Mars in your chart, to the sign on your ascendant, and to the place where Aries is in your chart, okay? So I hope this video helped. Please leave me a comment down below, especially tap in and write your zodiac, your ascendant sign, if you want me to do yours first. I have no particular order, so I'm just going to leave it to the comments here. And if you enjoyed this, please give this a thumbs up and make sure you hit the subscribe button and share it with friends or family or anybody who's trying to deepen their evolutionary astrology knowledge and connect better to themselves. I will be back again, loves. Talk to you soon.